Being one of the best players is a prestigious title in any game. People look up to you around the world for the skills you work to hone, and the community goes on to remember you. At least most of the time. Some players manage to do things most couldn't have dreamt of, yet became forgotten by the masses. These are their stories. Sandstorm started his journey as an average 1.9 player, beating the typical levels of the time period just like anybody else would. He was not just an average player though. The first demonstration of his potential to the community came with the infamous race to beat Cataclysm. When you think of the race, Cyclic, Riot, or maybe Gearon are usually first to come to mind, but Sandstorm was in the competition too. He was about to announce his presence to the wider community in a grand way. He completed the level on the same day as Riot, tying for third in the world. Cataclysm was placed at number 2 on the demon list at this point in time. When the number 1 demon, Ice Carbon Diablo X, fell to Riot, Sandstorm was right behind him and beating it. Once the next number 1 demon, Bloodbath, released, he would end up setting a world record of 44% on 60Hz before dropping it for the time being. When Team N2's The Hell Factory released, he managed to fluke it from 44 with only a day of playtime. After this, there ended up being a 2-year break in big GD achievements, but what he came back with ended up being worth the wait. He had some unfinished business with a certain red level. After amassing a best of 92% on 60Hz, he decided to turn on the FPS bypass, and with that, his struggles with Bloodbath came to a close. He was not done there either. Next followed Infernal Abyss, the successor to the level that made him a community figure in the first place, Cataclysm. A Thanatos then fell to him. His next hardest had some dubious circumstances. He beat Yatagarasu, but it wasn't on recording, with 96% being the best he could upload for proof. Because of his good standing in the community, people believed him. Yata was placed at number 7 on the list at the time of the completion, meaning he'd been able to keep up with top 10s for 2 years on and off at this point. He also beat the number 13 demon Artificial Ascent soon after it as well. Then he went on a rampage through some of the top 10s. He may have been good at GD, but it was not the only game he was playing. He was becoming one of the best in the world at Brawlhalla as well, and was focusing more on that than GD. It seemed like he would fade away from Geometry Dash and just be remembered as one of the OG top players, but there was another twist in the Book of Sandstorm.
Yes! Let's go!
He just completed the much harder cousin of the level that haunted him 4 years ago in Bloodlust. He was back on the board with another top 10 completion, but it seemed to be a one-off and he went right back to Brawlhalla after, only sporadically doing the Yandere sometime later. This time it seemed like he was done for good as 2 full years had gone by, but as time has shown before, you can't count out Sandstorm.
Oh my god, let's go! Yes!
A whole 6 years since his heyday as a top player, he still managed to come back and beat the number 12 demon in Zodiac during his free time. In all those years of inactivity with the game, he hadn't lost a step. Since then, he hasn't beaten any more list demons, but if this is anything to go off of, Sandstorm may just surprise us once again in the future. In the 2.0 update, a player named Blast CFB first appeared on people's radar with a completion of Old Cataclysm. In this time, there weren't nearly as many players who were able to beat an extreme demon, so if you could, you got noticed. He had played and beaten plenty of demons before it, but doing an extreme just had a different impact. It wasn't the current version of the level though, so it occupied a weird gray area as an achievement. He didn't beat the rated version of Cataclysm, so he ended up picking up another extreme. This time it would be Andromeda's The Ultimate Phase. He had some troubling fails in the 70s, but ultimately was able to pull through, making it his first real top 10 demon completion. He'd also end up teasing a certain level after this, but we'll get back to that one later. Crimson Clutter was next on the chopping block, and then he set his sights on Acropolix. He got his worst fail yet when he died 98% of the way into the level, only a few clicks away from being done. Such an incident would normally be extremely demotivating, but Blast managed to come back and finish it off anyway. New Kata didn't take long with his experience from the older version. Then he ended up being able to beat the game's hardest memory demon, A Bizarre Phantasm, but something far greater than any of these was brewing. This is Acropolix. Acropolix was a prospective top demon that had absolutely absurd wave gameplay. Nobody ever beat a full level with sections like this before, but Blast was willing to try. This level could elevate him far beyond what anybody would have thought possible. When he got 77% on stream, everybody knew the level could be done, and on July 31st, 2016, he did it. Acropolix would have been a new #1 demon, but as you probably know the story, it would never end up getting a rating from the developer RobTop and was relegated to a position where it didn't get the official title of hardest demon. Bloodbath lived to see another day with the official top 1 position, and that's exactly what level Blast was after next. It was a hard grind with multiple deaths in the 90s, but that never managed to deter him. And with that, he'd beaten both the official and unofficial hardest demons in Geometry Dash. After Bloodbath, it was like a weight had been lifted and his speed with grinding out extremes got much faster. Instead of listing all of them one by one, let me show you what he was able to do. By this point in time, neither Bloodbath nor Acropolix were the hardest level anymore. Some much harder things had been done, and Sonic Wave was now at the pinnacle of the game's achievements. Blast announced the fact he was attempting it with a 49% run. A mere 8 days later, his best was upped all the way to 89%. Blast was still able to compete with the best in the world. And then on Christmas Eve of 2016, this run happened. Blast did it. He reclaimed his status as a victor of the hardest level in the game. Sonic Wave was exponentially harder than Bloodbath or Acropolix, and yet he managed to do it in under a month of playing. When he completed Artificial Ascent the following month, he further reaffirmed the fact he was one of the best in the world. The last top demon he ever went for ended up being Yatagarasu. When he beat it, it seemed like just another Blast completion, but more top demons never followed it. Unlike most players, he never fell off and then faded away over time. He ended up stopping at the height of his career. Rampage's GD career had humble beginnings, racking up large attempt counts on normal levels like over 10k on 9 circles. He followed a fairly normal progression with levels like Fairy Dust following on from it, but ended up making a pivot that would set him up for bigger things. He achieved a 48% run on Bloodbath on 60Hz. He now had a goal to reach, and although he wouldn't stay on 60Hz, just getting that far on it in September of 2016 was impressive. He wouldn't resume Bloodbath until the following year, but when he did, the grind didn't stop. The progress kept accumulating, and it seemed like any day he could beat his first extreme demon. And then it happened. He skipped over all the easier extreme demons in an early case of jumping before it really became popularized. He went straight for a top 10 demon and got it. Bloodbath was impressive, but the next move he made was jaw-dropping.
I beat it!
Oh my god!
Yes!
Oh my god!
Yes! Yes! Oh my god! I beat it! Let's go!
He beat the number 2 demon Yata-Garasu. In current times, Yata is nearly 200 places higher than Bloodbath on the list. It was an insane achievement for the budding player. The next step from here was logical. He had done the number 2 demon and there was only one left above it to challenge. It was time for Sonic Wave. Rampage was undeniably one of the best now, having the top 2 complete. Now the only RGB trilogy level left was Erebus. Erebus gave him hell with a 98% death on route to the completion. He was so close to completing the entire top 3. It was a frustrating fail, but he didn't let it stop him from completing the top 3. When Zafkiel joined the top 10, he would end up one of the early victors of the level. And then something important happened. The player whose levels got him his start and one of his best friends in the community, Riot, offered him the verification for his Extreme Demon Quantum Processing, and Ramp accepted. He got 74% on the level, and then a month later he got this run. He now had a top 10 verification of his own when it ended up placing 7th on the list. In the time after it, he ended up becoming fairly inactive as a player until something managed to bring him out of hibernation. A new number 1 demon in Bloodlust was verified, and it was able to catch the attention of Rampage. One day after its release, he already had 44 on it, and the grind didn't stop. He ended up getting 97% a few weeks into playing the level. He was about to beat the number 1 demon again. So close, yet so far. And then 3 days later, he did it. He was the 3rd person in the world to complete Bloodlust. His career as a top player ended where it began with Bloodbath. It was by far the most fitting way for him to go out on top. The first thing that made people take notice of Skolo was a completion of Team N2's Artificial Ideology. It was a fairly recently released top 15 demon when he beat it. When that was said and done, he committed to something far harder in Yata-Garasu, one of the ever-present RGB trilogy that held up the top 3 for months. When he got 98%, it was both an affirmation that he could do it and a large setback all in one go. But the following day, he was able to complete it.
Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god!
After Yata-Garasu, he became a high-level list grinder and beat many of the levels on it. Some of the more noteworthy ones include Bloodbath, Hell, and Phobos, just to name a few. He was also playing Sonic Wave and achieved a run of 76%. When Kermal released Black Blizzard, it took Skolo a mere 8 days to beat it and upload it to YouTube. He was rampaging through every Extreme Demon that dropped. Sonic Wave progression also continued with runs like 88 and 94. He was super close to having a new hardest and then was able to finish it off. Not long after, he picked off Erebus being a victor of the RGB trilogy, but this was just the beginning. He verified Sublime Sacrifice after that, which while never getting rated was an interesting achievement to note as his first verification. When Digital Descent released and placed number 1, he quickly completed it and asserted that it wasn't actually the hardest level, and alongside other opinions, it would contribute to it being moved down below the RGB trilogy. Remember Phobos? Well, Skolo was now tasked with verifying a much harder remake of it in Deimos by N level. He was able to get 42, and then a few days later, 51 to 100 on the prospective number 1 demon. The best run he ever got as verifier ended up being 81, and he wasn't able to finish it off before it ended up in the hands of Nepesta, who finished it off down the line. But that's getting ahead of ourselves. At this point in time, the new top 1 Bloodlust just dropped and Skolo immediately went for it. He first got 82% with the at the time banned FPS bypass, and then the unthinkable happened.
No!
Much like the levels verifier Novel Boy, Skolo would fall victim to a fail at 98%, but because Novel Boy added the triple after his 98% fail, it was even further in. Nobody else had beaten Bloodlust, so he may have fumbled his opportunity to be the first. Sunix, Rampage, and others were hot on his tail, and he had to act fast. Would he be able to salvage the situation and be the first to beat Bloodlust? That's what we as a community wondered when the 98 fail happened. On March 7th of 2018, there was finally a victor of Bloodlust, and it was none other than Skolo.
I beat Bloodlust.
You did? GG!
Oh my god!
Nice.
Oh. Let's fucking go! Fuck everyone that didn't believe in me. Fuck.
You beat it, GG!
No one knew I'd do it.
Right.
Okay, then.
He managed to pull through and still ended up the first in the world to beat Bloodlust. Sunix followed only 1 day later, which showed just how down to the wire the competition for first in the world was. After Bloodlust, he did another Motu verification in Glow of Entrancing. It's a shame the level never got rated, as it's quite pretty for 2018 standards. Soon after, he beat the number 2 demon Plasma Pulse Finale and then temporarily stepped away from the game. When he came back, he had some unfinished business with a major verification that never was. He finally put his time with Deimos to rest, even if not as the one to verify it.